I'm not going to blame just one thing, but I mean, we still don't really have a rotation, a set rotation. Not to blame coach or anything. I mean, that might be one of the reasons, but we can't keep blaming that. I mean, the next guy up got to be ready, whether you're playing 20 minutes or 2 minutes. That can't keep being an excuse. So I don't know the reason. I want to find out the reason so we can fix it and stop having these type of games.
What changes would you like to see from the rotation?
I don't know. I mean, a set one where I think guys know when they're going in or coming out. I mean, for the most part, I know my minutes, but I mean, it's hard for some guys. But as a professional, you gotta be ready. You can't put that on coach.
Welcome back to the show for part 2, the David Lee Lottery edition here. But first, let's talk about Isaiah Thomas with his there were really strong comments after the game, but they were pretty notable. The fact that he was openly addressing the fact that the Celtics' lack of a consistent rotation is hurting a lot of guys. It's something that we've kind of debated a lot earlier in the season, and that debate has really died down, but it's starting to open back up now where Stevens has really experimented with mixing things up as far as the big rotations are concerned. It used to be more matchup dependent. I think right now it's really more of just trying to figure out what the hell's going to stick to the wall.
Me?
Jimmy.
Should I go? Okay. It's not the first time we've heard about the rotations being a problem. I know Jay Crowder openly said something about it earlier in the season. So when I hear Crowder say something about it, and now I hear Thomas say something about it, I mean, those are your two, guys. Those are two of your more leaders on the team. I think Crowder's one of the leaders of the team, even though he's only been here for a year. Same with Thomas. I mean, these guys are two of the newest players on the team, but I still think that players look up to them in a certain way. They might be speaking for the team in that sense. Now, obviously, a guy like Thomas, his role is pretty determined. He's not really speaking for himself. I think he's talking about some of the other guys that are maybe in and out of the, I guess towards the end of the rotation, maybe a guy like Olynyk or Sellinger or, whoever it may be. Guys' minutes are fluctuating. I can see where that can be an issue, but I don't think that's the issue in this game. I mean, Isaiah Thomas, we talked about it in the last video, struggled all game from the field. These guys couldn't hit shots tonight. You can't tell me that it's because, they didn't come in at the time they thought they were going to come in, or they didn't play as many minutes as they should, or they're not warmed up the same way. The problem was they just couldn't hit shots tonight. They got outmanned in the fourth quarter, and that's why. And you know what? When you're a team like the Celtics and you are pretty even across the board in terms of talent, you are going to get a lot of mixing and matching. Brad Stevens should coach that way until guys prove that, I am good enough to remain in this role. And if I want to be a starter, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to play 25 minutes or 32 minutes a game. Until then, you're going to have to deal with the fluctuation in the rotation.
It's kind of odd that he brought it up tonight because I feel like the past 2 games, Coach Stevens has really used, which has been a 9-man rotation. He's kind of shortened the bench, and it's been more consistent of late. So it was kind of odd for him to bring it up tonight, and it just didn't really seem to make sense. What really was the reason for this loss, and it's something Stevens mentioned, it's something Crowder and Amir Johnson talked about, is they just kind of lost the intensity in the fourth quarter, and that's something that's been a kind of a common theme throughout most of their losses, especially at home. So I thought it was kind of odd to blame the rotation, and Isaiah Thomas immediately once he said it, it's like, we can't put that on coach, like players have to be professional, and kind of backtracked immediately. And I don't know what the situation is. I don't even know exactly who he's talking about other than David Lee, because if you look at the bench right here, it kind of makes sense with the minutes they're getting. I don't see whose performance would improve with a more consistent role.
I think he was asked like what ideas do you have to improve the team? It wasn't.
It was
like
a leading question. It was you, Jay King, and I blame you. You led the witness.
By the way, you asked a question right before that kind of, I think, set the tone for it too. So you're partially to blame for this situation.
No, I don't even think.
Yeah, Jay King.
I really don't even think it's a situation. I just think it's just he's trying to throw ideas out there. What maybe could be the issue, and maybe that even says more about the real issue at hand is that these guys don't really know what the issue is.
That's what I was thinking, is that I feel like Stevens a lot post-game when the team has a bad performance, especially shooting, will blame effort or ball movement. And it seems like he can kind of point to that every night because he can't come out and say, we don't have enough talent.
Right.
And it seems like it's just kind of an excuse that Brad uses because he's not going to sell out his players in the media. But at the end of the day, these guys just can't make the shots they need to compete in the Eastern Conference every single night.
I agree. I think it has more to do with talent than at times. I mean, at times definitely it's effort because you've seen these guys compete with Golden State. So right there you can say, okay, well, if these guys can bring it against the best team in the league, they should be able to bring it against Brooklyn or whoever it may be. So I think it does have to do with effort But there are nights like tonight where you're just not hitting shots because you don't have the guys that can hit them.
Okay, well, there's one guy where I think his effort's pretty fine, but it just seems like he just doesn't really quite have it like he used to, and it's not going to be good enough, is David Lee. He was asked after the game whether or not he wants to be traded. And while he didn't say he wants to be traded, he kind of made it sound like he's open to the idea of being traded if it's somewhere that he'll actually get playing time. And he thought that Boston was a place where he could get that playing time. And I mean, they put him in the starting lineup at the beginning of the year. I think he got his opportunity, but he just hasn't been, he doesn't look healthy. And I don't know if it's because he's hurt or because he just hasn't really recovered from being injured. But he's just not, it clearly isn't the guy he was 2 years anymore.
Yeah, and you think you nailed it. He's not sitting there like demanding a trade. He just, like any other player, especially a guy in his contract year, he wants to play. And yeah, he doesn't really look like a great fit for what these guys are trying to do at times. He's not doing anything particularly well. He's a guy that you're going to look for offensively, and if he's not hitting those inside the 3-point line shots, if he's not being able to facilitate the offense, then he's really useless to what you need. And I think that's what Brad Stevens is kind of dealing with right now. And Brad Stevens is still trying to see what works. And he did say after the game that either Zeller or Lee would play tomorrow in Chicago because they need more size. So if Lee has another DNP tomorrow, then maybe the frustration really starts to set in, and maybe he does become a little bit more vocal, whether it's his agent or whoever it may be. Get me on a team that I can at least get in towards the end of the rotation and not completely out of it.
If you were David Lee, would you want to go to Philadelphia 76ers?
Probably not,
I don't
but
think it would be there.
They've won like 3 straight games. They're on the uptick.
the process is starting to be trusted
He could get
well
at
enough.
least
Yeah.
28 minutes a game
I
for
don't
them.
think they'd want him, but there's got to be
Don't
teams out
ruin
there.
my
But
hypothetical.
Philly has to make a move to get over the salary floor
Can we
still,
get
I think,
Okafor in
right?
return somehow?
Well, like,
Okafor and
what if it's
Nerlens.
Embiid or something like that? If they could put together a package with Lee as a salary guy, then you never know. That could be it.
They wouldn't do that.
No.
Embiid's not a salary dump.
But,
they're
I mean,
not gonna salary dump.
They have to get rid of one of those big guys, so it would
I
make
think they
sense.
at least want to see.
Yeah.
I think they'd want to see what they can get out of him.
I think the Twitter universe would explode if David Lee somehow ended up on the 76ers, and I'm looking forward to that moment.
And it starts dropping like 18 and 10 every single game. That'd be fun, right?
But but in a serious note, it is becoming. There aren't really any issues. Behind the scenes with the Celtics, so that seems to be the leading candidate to be the first.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think he's a veteran and is more willing to be a little bit more vocal about it in the locker room. He's kind of made snide remarks when reporters are kind of in the scrum talking to everyone else on the team. You've kind of heard the chirps from David Lee this year, and I just think that he's a vet and is just more willing to put himself out there like that because he's been around. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to be a big issue for this team moving forward.
Well, he knows he has to speak up for himself in the situation because he doesn't have the luxury of time on the side anymore.
Do you think he will be on the team after the trade deadline?
Hell no.
Okay.
There's 2 different ways to say that. Let's wrap it up here. So, David Lee has his $100 worth of lottery tickets that he's waiting on the Powerball numbers tonight. So
So
it
do
could
I.
be a very rich man. It's not like he's already making $15 million a year, right?
Yeah, he needs it.
All right, that's going to do it for the show. This has been the Garden Report powered by Grandstand. For Sam and Jimmy, I'm Jared. We'll catch you on the flip side. One quick note. Kyle George, the man that's been behind the camera for a few years now, is doing his
there
last
he
game.
is.
He just caught that piece of paper
That was
behind the
nice
back
catch.
almost. That was pretty sweet. There it is. So we love Kyle.
Dab
Kyle,
on him,
thank you
Kyle.
for
Kyle's
everything.
lasting forever, hopefully.
No,
Dab
he'll
him
be
on
back
him,
at some
Kyle.
point, but he won't be back for a few months now. So leave a comment on here telling Kyle how amazing he is. You'll still find
you,
Kyle
Kyle.
putting pretty much the top GIF on r/NBA pretty much every single night while he's out in LA. So Kyle, thanks
right.
for everything. This has been the Garden Report. Good night.
Thanks, Kyle.
It's hard when like inconsistent minutes give you inconsistent play. So I think that's tough for them. But I mean, if I was in that position, I would try to figure it out and just do the best I possibly can. I think it's a mental thing more than anything because you got to keep your mind right and stay ready. And I mean, it's been 30-some games, and if this is how coach is going to coach, you got to be ready for it. And we can't put it on him. As players, we go out there and play. We got to do our job.